My name is Noah, and this is my story. If you are listening to this, you are my descendant, and I'm going to tell you the reason. So we can imagine, today the world was hit by an unimaginable catastrophe, leaving only my family and me as the last survivors. It is a surreal situation. Everyone is dead, except my family. The scale of destruction is unfathomable, and the loss of lives is simply devastating. I can't help but wonder what went wrong and how everything happened so quickly. This is a judgment beyond measure. How did this happen? How did we get here? Countless forces came together to make the flood happen. The sequence of events that led to the Great Flood began with the creation of the sons of God, even before the world itself was created. It's believed that these sons of God possessed supernatural powers and were considered divine beings. However, it's said that one of these divine beings rebelled against God and became a fallen being, setting the stage for the catastrophic events that would follow. Heaven was originally meant to be their home for all eternity, but now they had fallen from it. What caused all this? Angels are celestial beings who were created with the sole purpose of dwelling in heaven with God. Their main function is to worship Him and execute His orders. They were designed to glorify God and serve as messengers between Him and humans. Unlike people who were created to live on earth, angels were created to live in heaven. These celestial beings, known as angels, decided to abandon their origin in heaven. They departed from their starting point and ventured into our world with their own agenda. They left their beginning in the Garden of Eden, a paradise where Adam and Eve could live in peace and harmony. Satan launched his first attack on God's authority on earth. Adam and Eve fell and were cursed. Even now, my family still suffers tremendously from this curse. You see, agriculture and subsistence are very difficult. The Lord said, "It is the earth because of you. With pain you will eat from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat your bread until you return to the ground. For from it you were taken, because you are dust, and to dust you will return." Now my ancestors and I had to sweat to survive. God was disappointed by their disobedience. They could no longer stay in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve had already made a mistake by eating the forbidden fruit. As a consequence of their disobedience, God was full of disappointment, and Adam and Eve were no longer allowed to remain in the idyllic paradise that was the Garden of Eden. The fatal error committed resulted in their expulsion from the serene sanctuary they once called home. Adam and Eve had sons and daughters, including Cain and Abel. With the growth of their family came the birth of their own. As the children of Adam and Eve grew, they took wives and had their own families. The population began to grow steadily. Cain killed his brother and initiated a very malevolent and dangerous lineage. And that lineage did not invoke the name of God. Fortunately, Eve gave birth to my ancestor Seth, and the world began another pious lineage through him. Humanity was divided into two paths, the lineage of Cain and the lineage of Seth. As the world's population grew, so did the prevalence of sin. People were often cruel to one another, and their actions were full of deception, theft, and even murder. During that era, men were blessed with extraordinarily long lives, sometimes lasting hundreds of years. It was a different era, a time when humanity was still intimately connected to its origins, and the world itself was younger and fresher. Adam, the first man, lived 930 years. Yes, you heard it correctly, 9 centuries. He had children who also lived extraordinarily long lives. His son Seth lived 912 years, and Seth's son, Enos, lived 905 years. As generations passed, each man generated children and taught them the ways of the earth. how to cultivate the land and care for the animals, and also how to connect with God. This lineage of people was special. They carried the seed of the first union of humanity with fallen angels. Despite their long lives and deep wisdom, these early peoples were not immune to the problems that often afflict humanity. Issues such as jealousy, anger, and sometimes even violence. However, there was a man, my great-grandfather, named Enoch. Enoch is the man who never died in the story of my family. My great-grandfather had a deep and sincere appreciation for God's love that he expressed through his unwavering loyalty and fervent passion. As a result of his devotion, he became a channel for God's mighty power and was blessed with great manifestations of that power throughout his life. Curiously, my great-grandfather's faith was so strong that he was frequently able to prophesy future events with remarkable precision. In fact, he even spoke about the future judgment of the Lord against people in general long before it happened. Enoch always prophesied about the future judgment of the Lord against people in general. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah, my grandfather. Methuselah's life could have predicted mine, as his name meant, "When he dies, this will happen." As the years passed, communities of tribes and clans emerged, each tracing their ancestry back to one of the original patriarchs. These groups of people ventured through the lands, exploring new territories to call their own. As the number of people increased, so did their needs and aspirations. The traditional roles of herding and agriculture were no longer enough to sustain their livelihoods, and they began to explore new paths. Families grew into tribes, and people began to take on different roles and professions. Ranging from skilled craftsmen to scholars, these changes marked the first steps toward the evolution of civilization. As people began to organize into complex social structures, with each person contributing their unique skills and abilities to the community. Now here we are, 10 generations from Adam. Life continues to present its challenges as the earth remains severely hardened after Adam's curse. The men of our time find it increasingly difficult to obtain sustenance and provide for their families. My father Lamech lived 182 years and had me. He called me Noah, saying that I would bring comfort and relief to our people who work and labor painfully due to the curse of the soil. This is who I am. I was born with the purpose of bringing relief. The world is an evil place. The Nephilim invaded the world. Now insert into this chaotic world an unusual development. The Nephilim were special and not like ordinary people. They were strong and larger than life, but they worsened the world's problems. They were admired, feared, and even worshipped, leading people away from the true God who created them. Their strength made them objects of fascination, but they were part of a world that was increasingly immersing itself in chaos and sin. Evil legions began to infiltrate humanity. When human beings began to increase in number on earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful and married any of them they chose. Who were the sons of God? As I said, they were fallen angels. These fallen angels descended to earth and gave birth to the Nephilim, or giants. The fallen corrupted the entire world. These angels in rebellion against God coveted human women. There were also giants on the earth in those days. The giants are the unnatural offspring of the union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. They were the mighty men of old, men of renown. This is the world in which I reside, a world of giants and Nephilim, a world of evil. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of their hearts was continually only for evil. The earth was not a place of peace or goodness, but a place replete with sin, violence, and moral corruption. Imagine a gloomy world where individuals are consumed by their own insatiable desires, relentlessly pursuing their selfish agendas without consideration for the well-being of others. The concepts of honesty, integrity, and goodness are not only undervalued, but also misunderstood. Instead, people resort to deception and manipulation as the norm to achieve their goals. Society is characterized by a mentality of every man for himself, where everyone is out for themselves, and the very foundation of the community is torn apart by selfishness and malevolence. In that environment, families are not sanctuaries of love and support, but rather battlefields of deception and betrayal. Neighbors do not take care of each other, but seek to take advantage of each other. Governments are not institutions of justice, but symptoms of oppression, maintaining the rule of the powerful over the weak. It was in this context that God saw the wickedness of humanity, the spiritual and moral decline, God's sadness for creation. Humanity, the jewel of creation, had lost its way. Instead of living in harmony with one another and with the world, people were consumed by violence, evil, and deception. God looked at his creation and felt immense sadness. It was divine sadness, a pain so deep that it transcended human understanding. Imagine a father with a broken heart over the actions of a rebellious child, but infinitely amplified. And so, in his great sorrow, God made a difficult decision. The Lord sought to destroy the humanity he had created on the surface of the earth, not only man, but also animals, creeping creatures, and birds of the sky, because it deeply hurt him to see humanity sin, and he regretted having made them. God was upset with the actions of the people he made, and he had no other choice to heal a world that was sinking into chaos. The Spirit of the Lord would not strive with men forever. Judgment was on the way. Fortunately, I found grace in the eyes of the Lord. I was saved by an act of divine sovereignty. Every intention of man's thoughts was only evil continually. That says a lot. There was no aspect of human nature that was not corrupted by sin. The world was a place where the population was exploding at an alarming rate. Perversion had become common. Demonic activity was widespread. Constant evil resided in the heart of man, and corruption and violence were rampant. God was tired of this state of affairs. Then God turned his gaze toward me. I was a righteous man, and very different from my generations. I had a close relationship with God and walked in his ways. Unlike many others of my time, I remained intact from the corruption that plagued the world. My family and I did not engage in sinful unions with fallen angels. Although I certainly cannot claim to be perfect like God, I made a sincere effort to follow his commandments and live according to his will. My family and I followed the ways of the Lord. My family was composed of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I obeyed God's commandments in the best way I could and understood them. So in the midst of a generation consumed by sin and depravity, I stood out as a shining example of righteousness. My life was characterized by irreproachability and obedience, and I walked with God in a close and intimate relationship, just like my great-grandfather Enoch. While others indulged in the pleasures of the flesh, I found my joy in serving and obeying the Lord. Every moment of my life was a testimony to God's love and faithfulness, and I valued the opportunity to walk with him every step of the way. God considered me righteous. The population of the earth was corrupted, absolutely depraved, spiritually and morally putrid in the eyes of God. And the earth was full of violence, contempt, outrage, aggression and greed for power. Due to the corruption and violence on earth and the extent of corruption, God told me that he would judge the wicked along with the earth. God told me, I intend to make an end of all living things, for through men the earth is full of violence, and behold, I'm about to destroy them along with the earth. It points to a deep and serious problem in the world. At that moment, in times of great corruption and imminent judgment, I received a divine message from God who intended to save me and my family. Despite the gloomy circumstances, there was a glimmer of hope in the form of grace. Instead of completely eliminating humanity, God chose to preserve a small group of people, a remnant. I did not deserve or earn that grace, but I stumbled upon it. Grace cannot be earned, but it can be discovered by anyone who seeks it. It is said that where sin abounded, grace abounded even more, and that was certainly true in my case. God told me, "Make yourself an ark of gopher wood." God said, "Make yourself an ark." That means this was my project. I should not simply contract it to someone else. To prepare for the great flood, God instructed me to build compartments in it, including stalls, kennels, nests, cages, and compartments to house all the animals and their provisions. To ensure the longevity of these structures, I was also instructed to line the interior and exterior of each compartment with pitch or bitumen, a natural substance that works to waterproof the wood. This proved to be an effective method of preservation, as the ark was able to withstand the flood for an extended period of time. It is possible that the preservation of the ark serves a greater purpose, as a reminder of past judgment and a warning of a future one. This is the way you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the width 50 cubits, and the height 30 cubits, 450 feet by 75 feet by 45 feet. The ark was as long as a 30-story building, approximately 450 feet or 150 meters, and was about 75 feet or 25 meters wide and 45 feet or 15 meters high. What is described is not really a ship, but a well-ventilated barge designed only to float and not to sail anywhere. After all, an ark is a chest, not a ship. This refers to the box shape of the boat. You shall make a window for light and ventilation for the ark, and finish it to at least 1 cubit, 18 inches, from the top, and place the entrance door of the ark on its side, and you shall make it with lower, second, and third decks. The shape of the ark was reminiscent of a box, but it was massive in size. Easily its top had an opening 1 cubit wide, measuring 18 inches or half a meter. A window was built at the top of the ark, providing a view of the outside world. The window had a cover that could be opened and closed, allowing flexibility in controlling the amount of light and air that entered the ark. As I began the construction of the enormous ark, I couldn't help but wonder about the reason for this colossal task. God simply instructed me to build the barge, and that he would soon bring judgment on the earth. However, at that time, I had no idea what that meant. I couldn't imagine the purpose of this colossal vessel. All I knew was that I had to trust in God's plan and follow his instructions. In the past, I received a divine message from the Lord that said, "You must make it." I followed the instructions and created what was necessary. Afterwards, the Lord shared with me the details of his plans. "For behold, I myself will bring a flood of water upon the earth to destroy all life under the heavens in which there is breath and spirit of life. Everything on earth will die." I was summoned to play a crucial role in the most significant judgment and the greatest salvation that the world had experienced. It was an extraordinary moment, filled with great responsibility and purpose. "But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark." Despite the dramatic judgment that would come, God would make a covenant with me. God would also use me to save a remnant of each animal, so that the earth could be populated with people and animals after the flood. God then said, "Everything on earth will die, but I will establish my solemn covenant, a formal agreement, with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your 3 sons, and your wife, and the wives of your sons with you. And of every living thing found on earth you must bring 2 of each kind to the ark, to keep them alive with you. They must be male and female of birds, according to their kind, of animals, according to their kind, of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind. 2 of each kind will come to you to keep them alive. Also, take with you every kind of edible food, and you must collect and store, and this will be food for you and for them. God also ordered me to bring all the food I could. There was a lot of food for me and all the animals. This would be the house of around 35,000 pairs of animals. Did you know that the average size of a land animal is actually smaller than that of a sheep? In fact, the ark would be large enough to transport an impressive total of 136,560 sheep in just half of its total capacity. This left ample space for all other essential provisions, such as food, water, and shelter for animals and humans. It is truly remarkable to think about the scale and capacity of such an incredible vessel. God made me the man of his counsel, communicating his purpose to destroy this wicked world by water. The secret of the Lord is with me. Today I did according to all that God commanded me. I followed every instruction given by God with the utmost faith and obedience. I was devout and committed to fulfilling God's will without hesitation or doubt. I encountered multiple obstacles along the way, which made the process quite prolonged and demanding. I had the workforce. I still had my grandfather Methuselah and my father Lamech. The Lord said, "Of every clean animal you shall take with you 7 pairs, the male and its female, and of animals that are not clean too, the male and its female. Also of the birds of the sky 7 pairs, the male and the female, to keep offspring alive on the surface of the earth, because in 7 days I will make it rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy, eliminate every living being that I made from the surface of the earth." So I did everything the Lord commanded. When I received this impressive task to do, I did it. I simply obeyed. That required a large amount of materials and years, but I did not back down from what God told me to do. I was a preacher of righteousness. I made public declarations to the people. It took me and my family a considerable time, approximately 120 years, to complete the construction of the ark. During this prolonged period, I had the opportunity to interact with the people around me and share the purpose behind the construction of the ark. Through my act of obedience, I also expressed my reprobation of the ways of the world and embraced the heritage of righteousness obtained through faith. It is a tragic story of disobedience and rebellion against truth. Despite being warned about the imminent danger, they chose to ignore the message and reject seeking safety in the ark. During the time when unbelief was rampant, my message was not limited to verbal proclamations. The construction of the ark itself was a manifestation of my commitment to righteousness. Each blow of the hammer and sound of a nail being driven into the wood reminded people that they needed to repent and return to righteousness before it was too late. The ark was not just a physical structure, but a powerful symbol of the imminent judgment that would come. My contemporaries ignored the message that could have saved them. Everything continued as it had always been. The scene was one of joy and celebration. People were feasting with food, drinking, exchanging marriage vows, and indulging in their own pleasures while ignoring the existence of God. But then came the day when I entered the ark, and the heavens opened with a torrential rain that destroyed every living being that was too busy to heed the warning. For 120 years, I dedicated my life to preaching righteousness to the masses. I hope to inspire changes in their hearts and minds, but sadly, it seems that my words fell on deaf ears. Despite my efforts, my message seemed to have gone unnoticed and unheeded. I wonder if someday they will open their hearts and turn their gaze to the path of righteousness that I fervently tried to guide them to. I built the ark 600 years after God created intelligent human beings capable of innovation. As life expectancies approached 1,000 years, the achievements of the world's best pre-flood innovators were remarkable. We could build cities, make musical instruments, and work with metals. My culture was at its industrial peak while I worked on the ark. The task of building the ark was daunting, requiring immense physical effort, significant expenses, and endless patience. The entire process was filled with danger and uncertainty. To outside observers, it might have seemed like a foolish and absurd undertaking. I worked on the project for decades, even while those around me mocked me and made jokes about my efforts. Despite all this, I remained firm in my faith and continued building the ark, knowing that it was my duty and destiny. My job was to obey God and trust Him to supply what I did not have, including the wisdom to build a sturdy ship and finish the project on time. Can you imagine what it must have been like when the ark was finally completed? However, during that period, I lost my father. He would no longer be present for the judgment. After some years, even the prophet Enoch was gone. My ancestor Enoch would not come with me on the journey as he was called by God. His words should have been taken seriously, as he was taken from this life not to experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him. My ancestors were gone. They would not face this cataclysmic event that I would face. Then came the day that concluded my entire generation. The day of my generation would end today. All those with whom I grew up would know their destiny today. Then the Lord said to me, "Enter the ark, you and all your house, for only you have I seen as righteous, doing what is right before me in this generation." The idea is that God was in the ark and would be with me in the ark. Then He called me to enter the ark with Him. The Lord did not tell me to go to the ark, but to come in, implying that God Himself was in the ark, waiting to receive me and my family in the great ship that would be their place of refuge. While all other people on the face of the earth would be drowned, it was a unique moment in life, one that I would never forget. When I rose inside the ark, surrounded by animals and the presence of God, the only people with me were my own family. Do you know how it feels to lose all those you have known since childhood? I did the best I could. I warned them for a long time. Today, I will lose all the people who are not my close family. Today, everyone will be judged. The air was filled with the sounds of thousands of creatures, each making its unique noise. After all these years of hard work, we finally finished. In some animals, God created a migratory instinct that can operate in an incredible way. This was the largest and most complete collection of animals ever gathered. It was not compiled by human skill. Only divine power could have accomplished a task like this. 2 by 2, they entered the ark. God never has problems making animals do what He wants. This was a very unique moment. My father was no longer here to witness it. He had died only 5 years before. Perhaps God waited for Enoch, Methuselah, and Lamech to die before bringing the flood. Now I am here without those men of faith. God even said that He had seen that I was righteous. I spent the years before the flood in active obedience. I not only believed that God would send the flood, but also obeyed what God told me to do in preparation for it. When I received the message that I would enter the ark, people watched and muttered every time they passed by. I could hear them beginning to make silly and petty jokes about crazy old Noah. Everyone knew there wasn't going to be a flood of water. How could it be? However, the Bible says a flood of water came. The Lord shut me inside. The same door that closed out those outside is the door that closed us inside. The The same waters that destroyed the world were the waters that raised the ark. I was 600 years old when the flood, the inundation of water, came upon the earth, covering the entire earth. Then I, my sons, my wife, and the wives of my sons with me entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood, of clean animals and animals that are not clean, of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground. They came motivated by God to the ark, 2 by 2, male and female, as God had commanded me. And after the 7 days, God released the rain, and the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of my life, the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that same day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows and floodgates of heaven were opened. It rained upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. The animals, my family and I, waited in the ark for 7 days for the rain. It was a true test of faith to wait a week after more than 100 years of preparation. Then the windows of heaven were opened, the fountains of the great deep that were broken up. Waters rose from below the earth too, accompanied by great geological catastrophes. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. That was a time of testing and purification, especially before entering the new world. The same day, I and Shem, Ham, my sons and my wife, and the 3 wives of my sons with them, entered the ark. They and all the animals according to their kind, all the cattle according to their kind, every being that moves, that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every bird of every sort. So we entered the ark, 2 by 2 of all living beings, in which there was breath and spirit of life. Those who entered, male and female of all flesh, entered as God had commanded me, and the Lord closed the door behind me. Everything was prepared exactly as the Lord had spoken. Everything was ready for the flood that God would bring upon the earth. I did not need to close the door on anyone's salvation. God did it. Normally we are the ones who deal with the disqualification of individuals from salvation. We must let God make that decision. God kept the door open until the last possible moment, but eventually he had to close the door. It is open or closed for me. The ark was the ultimate salvation, but sadly, for the rest of the world, it meant condemnation. Those who were not inside the ark had no opportunities for redemption. After the 120 years, the Spirit of God ceased to strive with humanity. Beyond that door, death would reign without exception. But inside, there would be absolute tranquility. The flood, the great rain, was for 40 days and nights upon the earth, and the waters increased and lifted the ark, and it floated high above the earth. The waters became powerful and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the waters. The waters prevailed so greatly and were so powerful and overwhelming on the earth that all the high mountains under the heavens were covered. In fact, the waters were 15 cubits higher than the highest earth, and the mountains were covered. All living beings that moved on the earth perished. Birds, cattle, domestic animals, wild animals, all things that creep and crawl on the earth, and all humanity. Everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath and spirit of life died. God destroyed, erased, eliminated every living being that was on the earth. Men and animals, and creeping creatures and birds of the heavens were destroyed from the earth. Only I and those who were with me in the ark remained alive. This was a global flood. It is difficult to imagine how much rain fell, since the mountains were completely covered. Despite the doubts and unbelief of many, God demonstrated his faithfulness and fulfilled his promise. After 120 years, the flood lasted 150 days without receding. Safe in the ark, during the catastrophe and judgment, my family and I were secure, closed in, and protected from the storm and the flood. God then turned his attention to me again. Then God remembered me, every living being, and all the animals with me in the ark. He was about to do something unique in our lives. God sent a wind over the earth, and they decreased. God never forgot me. He sustained me daily in the ark. But at that point, God again turned his active attention to me. It was really as if he remembered me again. I was locked in the ark for many days, and at the right time, God thought of me. In the face of a natural disaster like a flood, it is easy to feel helpless and overwhelmed. But we must not forget that the Almighty who created the vast universe and our world can calm even the most furious waters. His wisdom and power are beyond our understanding, and he can overcome any obstacle, no matter how frightening it may seem. The force of nature may seem intimidating, but remember, nothing is impossible for the divine force that governs our world. As the waters of the flood receded, the ark rested on Mount Ararat. Imagine that, a majestic mountain range. Its north and east slopes rise from the vast plain of the Aras River, reaching an impressive height of 3,300 meters above sea level. To the southwest, the slopes rise from a breathtaking plain situated at a dizzying height of 5,500 meters above sea level. With a diameter of approximately 40 kilometers, Mount Ararat is a true marvel of nature capable of leaving anyone in admiration for its beauty and grandeur. Ararat, the true cradle of humanity, our own garden. The heavens roared with thunder as the fountains of the deep broke open, unleashing a flood of water upon the earth. The rain fell relentlessly for 150 interminable days, threatening to submerge all life. But then, miraculously, the waters began to recede, slowly revealing the long-lost contours of the world. Finally, on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the majestic mountains of Ararat, a symbol of hope amid desolation. As the days passed, the waters continued to recede until finally, on the first day of the 10th month, the dazzling spectacle of the mountaintops emerged in the distance, signaling the return of life to the earth. The relentless falling rain finally ceased, but the power behind it was still evident. It was none other than God's divine control that decided when the rain and other waters would flow, and when they would stop. Mount Ararat was not an ideal place to disembark from the ark. Leaving the ark in high altitude, mountainous terrain made departure challenging for all of us from the ark. However, if God intended to place the ark in that specific place, it was the perfect place to leave it. The animals would be able to go in any direction from there as the waters of the flood receded. As the waters receded, an impressive magnitude emerged. The previously hidden mountain peaks around the earth were gradually revealed. This massive worldwide flood was so intense that the mountain peaks were initially submerged, hidden from view. But as the water steadily decreased, the mountains finally came back into view, a testimony to the strength and relentlessness of the flood that swept the earth. After 40 days, I anxiously opened the window of the ark that I had built with so much effort. With a feeling of expectation, I sent a raven to explore the world beyond the ark. The raven flew back and forth, flapping its wings in the air, until the dry waters retreated and the land was exposed once more. It seems that the raven can fly for a long time without needing to land, perhaps because the raven is a scavenger and can rest and feed on dead floating carcasses. These particular birds would not be enough. We needed to send a bird that would return to us. After weeks confined to the ark, we finally decided to send a brave dove to see if the waters had receded. As it flew over the vast expanse of water, they still covered the entire face of the earth. The weight was unbearable. I reached out and drew it toward the ark, holding it close to me, and then waited anxiously for 7 long days before sending the dove again. After its mission, the dove returned with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. Now I knew that the waters had finally receded from the earth. What a vision! A dove with an olive leaf. Being a clean, non-scavenging bird, the dove will not land on the earth until there is a dry and suitable place to perch. The dove patiently waits for the right time to perch on dry and suitable ground, embodying the virtue of cleanliness and grace. But I wasn't finished yet. I waited another 7 days and sent the dove again, and this time it didn't return. I knew then that our journey was over, and we finally found dry land. For the dove not to return means that it had begun its life on earth again. There it is. The raven and the dove were the first to begin their new lives on the new earth. Very soon, the other animals would also begin their new lives. God instructed me to enter the ark at a specific time, but did not inform me about the time when I should leave. It was necessary for me to know when to enter, and God made sure that I knew it. However, it was not important for me to know when to leave, so God did not reveal that. He always lets his people know what is practically good for them. It turned out that in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters had dried up on the earth. I removed the cover of the ark and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dry. You can imagine the anticipation that filled my heart as I waited for the waters to recede, and then finally, after a time confined to the ark, it happened. However, we still remained inside the ark for a time. In the second month, the 20th day of the month, the earth was dry. Moreover, God spoke to me saying to leave the ark, me and my wife and my sons and their wives with me. Bring with you every living thing of all flesh, including birds, animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may reproduce in great number on the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply on the earth. I went out, and my wife and my sons and their wives with me. Every animal, every creeping creature, every bird and everything that moves on the earth came out of the ark in groups or families, consisting of different types and classifications. As the floods raged, I valiantly entered the ark on the 17th day of the second month of my 600th year of life. For an entire year, I struggled against the stormy seas, until finally, in the second month of my 601st year, I emerged from the ark triumphant and alive. It was a year of significant change, but I survived to tell the story. And imagine this, the earth bursting with life as the living creatures from the ark repopulate the planet, bringing back the vibration and diversity that were once lost. What a captivating scene! Emerging from the confines of the ark, I stepped onto the vast world. I walked out, and the whole world was before me, wherever I might choose to go, the covenant of God with me. With great devotion, I built a magnificent altar for the Lord, and carefully selected only the purest and finest animals and birds to offer as burnt sacrifices. The flames leaped high into the sky as I humbly presented my offerings, my heart full of reverence for the Almighty. It was a truly impressive moment that left me deeply moved. The final test of faith, a true sacrifice, was about to be performed. With only 7 of each animal in the ark, the stakes were high. But I knew what I had to do. I risked extinction by offering some of these animals, but I did it anyway. Why? Because I knew that costly sacrifice is what most pleases God. Are you ready for an exciting challenge? To truly honor and connect with God, we must be willing to make sacrifices that cost us something. We are called to give generously of our resources and offer the sacrifice of praise to Him. So let us accept the challenge and experience the thrill of giving everything to God. When it comes to pleasing God, it's not about giving Him just anything, but about giving sacrificially at great cost. The Lord smelled the pleasant aroma, a sweet and satisfying odor, and the Lord said to Himself, "Never again will I curse the earth because of man, for the intention, strong inclination, desire of man's heart, is evil from his youth, and never again will I destroy every living being as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. Wow. The extravagant offering brought immense joy to God. It was almost as if the delicious taste of roasted meat filled the air, triggering an intense feeling in God's heart. He was so pleased that he made a magnificent promise for me and all humanity. God promised that he would never again destroy every living thing on earth with a flood of such scale as he did before. He made this promise out of pure mercy, knowing that the inclination of man's heart is towards evil from his youth. Man will still do evil, but God decided to spare humanity from this cataclysm. Here the Almighty poured out his blessings upon me and my sons, commanding us to fill the earth with our descendants. The Lord also said, "And the fear and dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, upon every bird of the sky, upon everything that moves on the earth, and upon all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that moves and lives shall be food for you. Just as I gave you the green herbs, I give you all this. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood." The world was nothing like I knew before. With a renewed mandate from God, it was a new beginning, a new start, and the possibilities were endless. This is like when God told Adam, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and all living beings that move upon the earth." Just as Adam was given instructions to eat, so was I. God told Adam, "Behold, I have given you every plant that yields seed, that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree in which there is fruit that yields seed. That shall be food for you." However, now I receive specific permission to eat animals. God also ordered me that if animals were killed and eaten, there should be proper respect for the blood. Blood is vital. Blood is the essence of life, so it is no wonder that it deserves the utmost respect, whether it be the blood of an animal or a human. It symbolizes the very core of existence. When we shed blood, we are taking life itself. This is not about superstition or mysticism. It's about recognizing the sanctity of all life. There were some who practiced the ingestion of blood, but that was not the way of the Lord. The Lord said, "Surely I will demand an accounting for your blood, the life of each one. From every animal I will demand, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every brother of man, I will demand the life of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God man was made. And as for you, be fruitful and multiply, spread abundantly throughout the earth, and multiply in it." According to God's command, if someone's blood were shed, then there should be an investigation into the matter. This is because God created man in his own image, and therefore human life is inherently valuable and cannot be taken without rendering an account to God. The words, "By man his blood shall be shed," carry a powerful message. They remind us that life is precious and must be protected at all costs. When an atrocious crime like murder is committed, God says that the perpetrator deserves nothing less than the maximum penalty, the death penalty. See the force of God's command. It even demands an accounting for the life of man from every animal. God does not tolerate illegal killing of any kind. Be fruitful and multiply. This point was repeated for emphasis, and it was because the situation was critical. Our planet desperately needed to be repopulated, and we are the only ones who will guarantee the continuity of our own species. God makes a covenant with man and with all creation. Then God spoke to me and to my sons, saying, "Now behold, I am establishing my covenant, binding agreement, solemn promise, with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and the wild animals of the earth with you, of all that come out of the ark, every living creature of the earth. I will establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, nor shall there ever again be a flood to destroy and ruin the earth. God made a promise that he would never again destroy the world with a flood. That's right. The Almighty made that promise as a repetition and clarification of his previous covenant. God did not believe he had done anything wrong or too severe in sending the flood. He made a promise to ensure that the same evil conditions that existed in the pre-flood world would never be exactly repeated. And God said, "This is the sign, visible symbol, memorial of the solemn covenant that I am making between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I set my rainbow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be that when I bring clouds over the earth, the rainbow shall be seen in the clouds, and I will remember with compassion my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and never again shall the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the rainbow is in the clouds, and I look at it, I will solemnly remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth." And God told me, "This rainbow is the sign of the covenant, solemn promise, binding agreement that I establish between me and all living things on earth." Imagine that. An incredible covenant that was made not only between God and humanity, but also between God and every living creature that walks, crawls, flies, and swims on this planet. Yes, the promise was even made to the earth itself, because the mantle of water vapors was released in the flood, and the earth's water cycle changed after the flood. This may be the first appearance of a rainbow. God used the rainbow as a sign for me and all generations that he would be faithful to his covenant. And there it was, the first rainbow. Can you imagine witnessing the first rainbow that appeared on our planet? And what is even more exciting is that God chose this magnificent creation as a sign of his faithfulness to me and all generations that followed. The rainbow is also a promise for you. When you see a rainbow, remember my epic story. Whenever we catch sight of a rainbow, it serves as a powerful reminder of God's unbreakable faithfulness and the fulfillment of all his promises. Indeed, it assures us that his covenant of peace with humanity is as unbreakable as his covenant with me and all subsequent generations. All this came with its challenges. I no longer had a peer. I was the oldest man in the world. Everyone was dead, and soon something very sad was about to happen. This would affect my sons, their ancestors. My sons who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and from these men the whole earth would be populated and dispersed with inhabitants. My sons would be the foundation of the world. Canaan, my grandson, would be cursed as a result of what transpired. In the wake of that catastrophe, I faced the aftermath of the catastrophic flood and emerged completely new, determined to create a new life for myself and my loved ones. With unlimited energy and enthusiasm, I launched into an exciting adventure of exploration and discovery, planting a multitude of crops, including a magnificent vineyard that promised to produce an abundant harvest. I used the grapes to make wine. I drank the wine, got drunk, and was naked in my tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, accidentally saw my nakedness, and to my shame, told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a blanket, put it on both their shoulders, and walked backward to cover my nakedness. Their faces were turned away so as not to see their father's nakedness. It is said that Ham told with delight what he observed in my tent. He decided to mock me, his father, and in the process was undermining my authority as a man of God. Ham's response shows his lack of respect for me. When I awoke from that wine-induced stupor, I knew what my younger son Ham had done to me. Then I said, Cursed be Canaan, Ham's son. A servant of servants he shall be to his brothers. I also said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. The judgment of this was quite severe. Canaan would live in servitude to Shem. However, that was not the end of evil in the world. After years of populating the earth, a man named Nimrod was born, and that changed everything we understood. Nimrod was born into a new world, recently recreated by God after his judgment left the old world devoid of much human and animal life. Nimrod founded two of the most powerful empires in history. Nimrod's actions led many people away from God. God's will for me and my descendants was to populate the earth. But as a people gathered in the plain of Shinar, they had no interest in reaching out to the world to settle in it. They had no interest in caring for the world that God had majestically placed before them. Instead, they rebelled. In this statement, we can see that the will of the people was opposed to the will of God. This should not surprise us, since humanity will always oppose God's will for them, except through saving grace, through faith in Jesus Christ. However, Scripture clearly teaches that the will of the Lord always triumphs, and he is not affected by humanity's efforts to defy it. However, their attempts were frustrated by the Lord. It was not difficult for the Lord to stop the progress of the Tower of Babel. The Lord scattered the people all over the earth and made them stop building the city, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. Imagine how astonishing it must have been for the people, how surprised they must have been when God appeared and mixed their languages. For God, it was a simple thing. His will and his plans cannot be stopped. After 300 years since the Great Flood, my time in this world is coming to an exciting end. All this said, who am I in practice? I am an example of a life of faith. By faith, I warned about things not yet seen. With holy fear, I built an ark to save my family by faith. Condemned pious lineage of Seth, of which it is said that in that time men began to call upon the name of the Lord. I was the result of generational obedience and faithfulness to God. In other words, being right with God, being right with others, and having a reverent and worshipful relationship with God. Behold, the Almighty Lord has the power to deliver the righteous from all kinds of trials and tribulations. And as I reflect on my life, it is a marked reminder that sin will not go unpunished. The day of reckoning is rapidly approaching. My name is Noah, and this is my story.